Imagine seeing an artwork so incredibly detailed, so masterfully crafted, that when Europeans first saw it in the 15th century, they refused to believe Africans could have made it. That's the story of the Benin Bronzes. Thousands of these priceless masterpieces were looted and scattered across the globe, and today, their true story is finally being told. This isn't just about art. It's about a powerful kingdom, a brutal invasion, and a fight for justice that continues to this day. So, where did these incredible pieces really come from? They came from the Kingdom of Benin, a highly organized and wealthy empire located in what is now modern-day Nigeria in West Africa. This wasn't just a small village. It was a powerful state famous for its stunning bronze, brass, and ivory sculptures. We're going to dive into the history that your school textbooks probably skipped, uncovering the truth behind one of Africa's greatest civilizations and the treasures that were stolen from it. This is a story of incredible achievement, heartbreaking loss, and the ongoing quest to reclaim a stolen legacy. The Kingdom of Benin wasn't something that appeared overnight. Its roots go back over 1,000 years. It was ruled by a powerful king known as the Oba, who presided over a highly structured and centralized government. Think of it like this: while many parts of the world were still figuring things out, Benin had a sophisticated system of guilds, nobles, and administrators that kept the kingdom running smoothly, and their capital, Benin City, was an architectural marvel. Early European visitors described it as a massive, well-planned city with huge protective walls and deep moats. In fact, these earthworks were once considered one of the largest man-made structures in the world, even rivaling the Great Wall of China in total length. This wasn't some primitive society. As colonial narratives would later claim, this was an advanced, strategic, and artistically brilliant civilization. It had extensive trade networks reaching across Africa and even into Europe long before the colonial era. They were trading goods like pepper, ivory, and palm oil for brass and other materials, showing they were savvy players on the global stage. This context is crucial because it shatters the myth that African societies were isolated or undeveloped before European contact. Now let's talk about the art itself, because this is where the story gets truly mind-blowing. The artisans of Benin were masters of a technique called lost wax casting. This is an incredibly complex and difficult method of creating metal sculptures. To put it simply, you first make a model out of wax, cover it in clay to create a mold, melt the wax out, and then pour molten bronze into the empty space. It requires immense skill, precision, and a deep understanding of metal. The results were breathtaking. We're talking about intricate bronze plaques that decorated the Oba's palace, depicting historical events, royal ceremonies, and courtly life. There were lifelike portrait heads of kings and queen mothers, powerful animal figures, and ornate royal regalia. The level of detail and realism was unlike anything else at the time. When the Portuguese first encountered these works in the 15th and 16th centuries, they were stunned. Let me be clear. European metalwork during this period simply wasn't at this level of sophistication. These weren't just pretty objects, they were a living library. Each piece was tied to religion, royalty, and storytelling. The plaques served as a historical record, preserving the kingdom's history for future generations. The art was an integral part of their cultural and spiritual identity, celebrating the power of the Oba and the rich traditions of the Edo people. It was a visual language that communicated power, history, and belief. For centuries, the Kingdom of Benin thrived, trading with Europeans on its own terms. But by the late 19th century, the dynamic had shifted. Britain, in its imperial expansion phase, wanted more than just trade. It wanted total control over the region's valuable resources. Especially palm oil, the Oba and his kingdom stood in the way of Britain's economic ambitions. Tensions escalated, and in 1897, a British delegation attempted to enter Benin City during an important religious festival against the Oba's explicit instructions. This led to a tragic confrontation where most of the British party was killed. In response, Britain launched a massive military invasion known as the Punitive Expedition. Let's call it what it was: an act of revenge and conquest. British forces, armed with superior weaponry, stormed Benin City. They didn't just conquer it, they burned it to the ground. The once magnificent city was razed and the Oba was overthrown and exiled. During this brutal raid, the soldiers systematically looted the royal palace. They stripped the pillars of their bronze plaques, seized thousands of sculptures, ivory tusks, and royal artifacts. This wasn't exploration or collection. It was organized theft on an industrial scale, a violent act of cultural destruction designed to break the spirit of the Benin Kingdom. So, what happened to the thousands of priceless artworks stolen from the burning palace? They were shipped back to London as spoils of war. To cover the costs of the invasion, the British government sold them off. These sacred and historical treasures were auctioned to the highest bidders, ending up in museums and private collections across the world. The British Museum in London holds one of the largest and most significant collections, but they are everywhere. In museums in Germany, France, Austria, and the United States. For over a century, these Benin bronzes became celebrated icons of African art, often displayed with little to no mention of the violent and traumatic way they were acquired. The story of their creation and their creators was erased, replaced by a colonial narrative that framed the looting as a righteous act of salvage. The art was admired, but the civilization that produced it was denigrated, and the crime of its theft was conveniently ignored. This has created a bizarre and painful situation where people in Nigeria have to travel to museums in Europe or America to see their own cultural heritage. The debate around repatriation, the act of returning these artifacts to their rightful homes. For decades, Nigeria and the Edo people have been formally requesting their return. They argue that these objects are not just art. They are their history, their spiritual connection to their ancestors, and an essential part of their identity. For a long time, Western museums resisted, using arguments about universal museums or questioning Nigeria's ability to care for the artifacts. But the tide is finally starting to turn. In recent years, the global conversation around colonialism and cultural justice has grown louder. Public pressure has mounted, and some institutions are beginning to acknowledge the injustice. Germany has made a significant commitment to return its vast collection. A few museums in the US and the UK have also returned individual pieces. It's a slow and complex process, but it marks a monumental shift in how the world views museum collections and the legacy of empire. This isn't just about returning stolen goods, it's about healing a historical wound. The story of the Benin Bronzes is more than just a history lesson. It's a powerful reminder that the objects we see in museums often have complex and painful stories behind them. It forces us to ask tough questions about who owns history and who gets to tell it. The fight for the return of the Benin Bronzes is a fight for cultural justice, for the restoration of a stolen heritage, and for the recognition of one of Africa's great historical civilizations. Knowing this history helps us understand the lasting impact of colonialism and the importance of correcting the wrongs of the past. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a history that deserves to be known. If you want to see more hidden histories and untold stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think should happen to the Benin Bronzes? Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.